Do you know about the car location system? It's a device installed in police vehicles, similar to a GPS navigation system. It not only displays our location, but also shows the location of reported incidents and displays the details of 911 calls in real time. This allows police officers en route to the scene to understand the situation in advance. The system also displays the positions of other patrol cars, making it more efficient during pursuits and searches. Nowadays, many police vehicles are equipped with this system. But when I was an officer, there were still many vehicles without it. So how did we get to the scene? We carried a huge map book in the car and used it to navigate to the scene. The officer in the passenger seat would listen to radio instructions, jot down the details in a notebook, then flip through the map to find the location. While driving, they would act as a human GPS, saying, "Turn right here or go straight." Looking back, it was quite inefficient. We often took longer to find the scene or got lost nearby. Despite this, I have a strong sixth sense and have collected many strange stories from fellow police officers. Today, I'll share one of the most memorable stories about a tunnel, rumored to be haunted by a white lady. I appreciate my 2 grandchildren who listen to my old stories, turn them into text and create videos. I add a bit of embellishment to make the story current, so please bear with me. Now, let's get into the main story. One night, I had the opportunity to meet with my old friend, John. Like me, John is a former police officer, and even after retirement, he enjoys reminiscing about the past. We had no particular plans that day, so we spent the evening drinking and sharing old stories. As we were sharing our fond memories, John suddenly said, "Do you know about the tunnel where the white lady is rumored to appear?" This was the first time I heard about the tunnel. According to John, the tunnel was on the outskirts of town and was well known locally as a haunted spot. Especially at night, there was a rumor that the ghost of a white lady would appear in the tunnel. At first, I thought it was a joke, John continued. As a police officer, I didn't pay much attention to things that couldn't be scientifically explained, and I didn't believe such stories. But one night, I had a very strange experience in that tunnel. When John started his story, I listened with great interest. What he experienced was something unimaginable in the daily life of an ordinary police officer. That night, John and his colleague were patrolling and decided to pass through the tunnel, where his unbelievable experience began. It was a quiet night with no particular incidents, John began. As we were patrolling in the car, we happened to decide to take the tunnel route. I had passed through that road many times, but that night something felt different. As he recounted the events of that night, a palpable tension filled the air, as if we were there with him. John's expression was serious, conveying how shocking the experience was for him. That night, John and his colleague were following their usual patrol route. It was a quiet night with no major incidents. As they approached the outskirts of town, John suddenly remembered the White Lady Tunnel. Normally, he would avoid that route, but for some reason, he felt compelled to go through it that night. When he suggested, "Shall we take a detour?" his colleague agreed, and the two headed towards the tunnel. As they approached the tunnel, they felt a change in the atmosphere inside the car. The surroundings were pitch dark with almost no streetlights. Despite his unease, John drove the car towards the tunnel entrance. The entrance, illuminated by the headlights, looked like a gaping monster. At that moment, John felt a chill down his spine and sensed something strange. When the car entered the tunnel, it became even darker and quieter. Only the sound of the engine echoed. John kept glancing back over his shoulder. Suddenly, his colleague shouted, "Look!" John turned his gaze forward and saw a white shadow at the end of the tunnel. Instantly, John felt his heart freeze. The white shadow was unmistakably the figure of the White Lady. Despite his fear, John slowly drove the car forward. The White Lady stared directly at them, but then suddenly vanished. Both John and his colleague were speechless. Unsure of what had just happened, John quickly drove the car out of the tunnel. Once outside, they finally took a deep breath and looked at each other. Whether it was a mere illusion or a real ghost, they couldn't say, but the experience was deeply etched in their memories. Weeks passed after John and his colleague saw the White Lady. Unable to forget the experience, they decided to visit the tunnel again at his colleague's suggestion. "Let's check it out once more. Maybe we were mistaken," his colleague said. John agreed, and they headed back to the tunnel. As before, the night was filled with an eerie silence. As they approached the tunnel, the same unsettling silence enveloped them. The temperature inside the car suddenly dropped, and a mist began to form. "This didn't happen last time," John muttered. His colleague replied, "You're right, something's off." As they reached the tunnel entrance, they saw the same white shadow. This time, the shadow had a clearer shape, and the figure of a woman was more distinct. John cautiously stopped the car, and they approached the shadow. As they got out, a cold wind pierced their bodies. From deep within the tunnel, they heard the faint sound of a woman sobbing. "You hear that?" his colleague whispered. John nodded, and they walked towards the sound. Suddenly, the shadow moved and started coming towards them. Overcome with fear, John reached out his hand to the white lady. As his hand touched her, he felt a cold sensation. "Is this really a ghost?" John thought. Then, the white lady suddenly vanished, and the tunnel was once again enveloped in silence. John and his colleague stood there in shock for a while. They couldn't understand what had happened, but the experience was incredibly real to them. John and his colleague reported the experience to their superior, who was skeptical. Nevertheless, to prevent rumors of a haunting from spreading, an unofficial investigation was initiated. For several days, John and his colleague patrolled the tunnel area and spoke with local residents. Some had similar experiences, while others knew nothing about it. During their investigation, they learned about an old incident in the tunnel. Decades ago, a woman had died under mysterious circumstances in the tunnel. Police records indicated that she was wearing a white dress, and the case remained unsolved. Could this woman be the White Lady? John wondered. Determined to uncover the truth, John and his colleague decided to investigate the tunnel once more. This time, they conducted the investigation during the day. Even in daylight, the tunnel was dim and filled with cold air. As they ventured deeper into the tunnel, they saw the white shadow again. This time, the shadow did not disappear when they approached, but stayed in place. The White Lady seemed to be trying to communicate something. She extended her hand and moved her mouth as if speaking, but no sound came out. John tried to understand the spirit's intent but couldn't decipher the words. Eventually, the White Lady vanished like a mist. Through this experience, John and his colleague were convinced that the spirit was trying to convey a message. Realizing that the White Lady's spirit was trying to communicate something, John and his colleague decided to investigate the case further. They reviewed old police records and reached out to the woman's family and friends. They discovered that shortly before her death, she had told a friend that she had something important to reveal. John and his colleague visited the friend, who had lived nearby, and learned more about the events of that time. The friend said she felt uneasy every time she passed through the tunnel. Although the exact reason was unclear, they suspected that something significant was hidden in the tunnel. Using this information, John decided to conduct a more thorough investigation. Returning to the tunnel, this time during the day, they meticulously examined every corner. They found an unusual mark on one of the walls. Upon closer inspection, they discovered a small hidden room behind the wall. Inside, they found old letters and photographs that the woman had hidden. The letters revealed that she had hidden important evidence related to a corruption case she was involved in. She had planned to expose the corruption, which led to her being targeted. John and his colleague took the evidence and reopened the investigation. As a result, the decades-old case was finally solved, and the woman's unjust death was avenged. The spirit of the White Lady finally found peace through John and his colleague's courage and determination. Long-unsolved case was finally resolved. This experience reminded us that places haunted by human emotions often have reasons behind them. As police officers, we sometimes encounter phenomena that cannot be scientifically explained. But human emotions and thoughts are often intertwined. I hope this story serves as a lesson for all of you. Remember that even in moments of fear, there can be warmth and compassion. Thank you for watching. Please give a thumbs up and subscribe to the channel. Also, please share your mysterious experiences and give advice to my middle school grandchild, who helped create and edit this video in the comments. See you in the next video.